All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now. Welcome everybody to our webinar, High Quality Instructional Materials, CKLA Second Edition, where you'll learn about enhancements for CKLA First Edition, from First Edition, and engage New York educators. Some housekeeping items today. This webinar is being recorded. So if you're having technical difficulties, please let us know in the questions panel or the chat window. We also recommend restarting the Zoom application. And we'll be answering questions at the end of today's webinar. So please send them into the chat or Q&A panel at any time throughout the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we cannot answer them, your rep will be in touch with you after this webinar, and they can help you answer the questions too. As I said before, this webinar is being recorded and it will be sent out to all registrants of the webinar, so you will receive that shortly after. And I would like to introduce today's webinar host, Karen Venditti. She's our curriculum specialist at Amplify. And Karen, take it away.
Thanks, Madigan. Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Venditti, and it's my pleasure to be here today to share the wonderful enhancements we've been busily preparing for you over the past few years. I'm just celebrating my 6th year with Amplify next month, and with each year, I feel more passionate about CKLA and the unbelievably dedicated teachers and leaders, those students and parents I've been seeing implement the program since my first presentation in Louisiana. My journey really has allowed me to support CKLA teachers at so many levels, and I've also had the good fortune of presenting with the Core Knowledge Foundation. So I feel really honored I was asked to share the differences with you today, especially because I was a part of the second edition writing team led by our own Science of Reading podcast host, Susan Lambert. So let's not waste any more time. All right, because we have listeners who may not be viewing our screen today, I'm going to quickly touch on what we want to accomplish. First, we're going to hit on what high quality instructional materials are and their necessity. And then I want to clarify the relationships between Amplify, Engage New York, and the Core Knowledge Foundation. Then we're going to spend some time, the majority of our time, discussing second edition enhancements and how to locate those materials. And then Madigan's going to discuss the free resources we have available to you right now to help you with the challenges of remote learning. So if you have any questions, as Madigan shared, please use the questions panel. But we have a poll question for you first. So we'd love to know who's joining us today. Please share your role. We're going to have a couple of poll questions for you today. Who's here? Building administrator or district administrator? All these different questions for you. Parent, regional, state support professional, all those wonderful roles. We're eager to hear who's coming in. And then I'm not sure if I'm seeing, I will get the results in a minute. All right, lots of teachers, coaches, really teachers and coaches. All right, great. So let's find out more about high quality instructional materials. Really, that's defined as instruction for each student that meets grade level academic standards. You know, it's research and evidence-based and data-driven, and it's culturally appropriate for all students, as well as engaging and differentiated. You know, we want to make sure we're hitting on all of those areas. And, you know, I know one of the reasons you're here today, we hope you already know, but we want to make sure everyone is aware that EdReports reviewed CKLA second edition. And I know there are users of both editions here, but it's second edition, and we're super proud of earning those all green scores on EdReports on our first review of that. And so where did it all begin? Well, just to give you a little bit of a background, because we get asked this question a lot, the Core Knowledge Foundation is an independent nonprofit organization that was founded in the 80s by E.D. Hirsch. They believe in educational excellence and equity for all kids. In their work, they developed a core knowledge sequence, and CKLA became a part of that, focused on reading and English language arts. So around 2012, Engage New York determined that CKLA was the curriculum they wanted to provide as open source resources online for New York in pre-K through grade 2. So there you'll see first edition CKLA materials, just as you will see those same materials on the Core Knowledge Foundation website. Amplify was selected to partner with the Core Knowledge Foundation to produce the curriculum for a greater audience and also to develop the grades 3 to 5 instructional path. So, as Amplify continues this work with CKLA first edition materials, we supported New York teachers as well as those around the country using Engage. And Core Knowledge Foundation materials, or those that we printed and produced for any school choosing to adopt CKLA. That's what we were involved with. And as the research grew and teachers shared a lot of feedback, it was determined that a second edition should be developed in that same partnership with the Core Knowledge Foundation and Amplify. But in this case, the second edition is only available through Amplify. So we really took all of that wonderful school partnership feedback to heart. And when we created second edition, we listened. So today I want to share with you how teacher feedback and the research on the science of reading came together to bring you what we have today. So now I'd really like to know what experience you have. So the people that are on the call today, just to get a taste of your roles and what you've been involved with, because we want to know, are people who have used the program via Engage or Amplify? I just worked with a school, I don't know, a few months ago that had been in their 6th year, going on to their 7th year of implementation with first edition. This was a school in New York. So we'll give you a second on that. And I know it's hard sometimes to find that poll in the chat. So who is here today? I hope we clarified the roles that Engage and Core Knowledge Foundation. We get that question a lot. All right. All right, so we've got people at all levels of implementation, and great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. All right, so let's talk about second edition. So one of the things we want you to know is that Amplify really grounds students in rich content. So they have that background knowledge that you need to have to access text from preschool all the way up, not just on those standardized assessments, but through life. And we do this in 3 critical areas, which you can see on the screen here. It's in terms of literacy or literary text, engaging science and social studies domains as well. So we want our pre-K to grade 5 teachers to see how that can continue, because our grade 6 to 8 curriculum continues on with that. So for instance, in grade 2, they encounter Greek myths, and they're going to do so again in grade 6 and through a novel study as well. With a Greek myths domain. And then the early grades, we study about ourselves and the human body. In grades 6 and 7, they move into brain science, and they move into actually epidemiology with a pandemic study, interestingly at this time. And then in grade 8, we're looking at the space race, the United States and Soviet Union space race, but they've done that earlier in terms of astronomy. So we wanted both programs to be built around the science of reading, but keeping in mind that knowledge really is important there, and it begets more knowledge. All right, so that new program structure, as mentioned earlier, we Amplify product team used both data and feedback to determine that an integrated strand in grade 3 was the best route to take for second edition. While this may not impact Engage New York teachers in the upper grades, anyone implementing 3rd grade will experience this change. And we took the oral language comprehension components and the foundational skills pieces, and we combined them into a single strand, while really adding and adjusting some of the content there. So as students became more strategic and automatic in their language and decoding competencies, CKLA grows with them as they move from learning to read to reading to learn. And so one thing you might immediately see is a change to the K-2 listening and learning strand. It's now referred to as the K-2 knowledge strand. The focus on knowledge was really important to us. And while kids are still learning while they are listening, we wanted to also highlight that overarching focus on the knowledge. There were also some content adjustments at K-2 that teachers will notice, but domains weren't adjusted. However, in grades 4 and 5, there were some new and reconfigured content pieces that I'm going to hit upon in a little bit. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of that screen, I've placed this grade level identifier so all of our participants can be sure to hear how each enhancement impacts various grades. So some of them will apply, to K-5, some to K-2 skills, some to just 3 to 5. So you'll see that first edition teachers immediately noticed, that when they're using our materials, that our amazingly talented artists at Amplify created these beautiful new exteriors to all the materials. In grades K to 2, both strands display an exciting storyline. So if you lay them on next to each other, you can see how this storyline in the skills and the knowledge strand plays out with these images. It's really attractive. And in grades 3 to 5, we focused on images that really highlighted the upper grade content. While, it obviously didn't change that instruction, it was a change that definitely grabbed the attention of all our dedicated CKLA teachers and students, which is really nice. Now, you're also going to notice a new interior design for the instructional path for our teachers. For instance, those guided listening supports that you're also used to were embedded in instruction, and they really allow for that uninterrupted lesson flow. Teachers are going to notice that consistent lesson at a glance, those components and advanced preparation that provides even greater support. But they'll notice the sidebars and some of the other things I'm going to hit upon. And so there is a different interior design for sure. And so again, in grades K to 5, teacher planning was streamlined and also now includes a digital planner at every grade level. It's on the CKLA teacher resource site, and I'm going to discuss that in a moment, and you'll get access to that if you don't already have access to this. This is also showing where those standards are aligned in that teacher planner to make it a little bit easier on teachers. And this is one of the most overwhelmingly welcome changes, was that alignment of fewer lesson objectives that really home in on the exact purpose and intent of each lesson. These are aligned to those formative assessments in the planning section. And that is critical for us. This really helps teachers and leaders alike. Everyone knows exactly what's being taught, and the formative assessments really tell me if my kids got it. There are embedded checks for understanding, and this is a new piece that can be found within every lesson. So teachers can now gauge in the moment learning. They're going to be able to tell what their kids are getting. Teachers immediately determine concepts to clarify, and the kiddos who might need additional help or guidance through a quick one-on-one or a small group remediation, really they can be identified through some of these quick checks for understanding. And we'll talk about some assessment changes as well. So there are suggestions for giving students extra support, and those are found throughout the teacher guide in the gray sidebar. So wherever you see a sidebar, you're going to see various graphics, various icons that stand for assessments or the activity books, but you're also going to see something called sidebar supports that are support and challenge. And this is embedded differentiation that's going to give teachers, again, really those in the moment opportunities for both enrichment and extra support. And those are extra support for kids who need support, and the challenger for those kiddos that may be a little bit more high flying in the classroom, and ideas. These add to teachers' ideas. Teachers have a lot of ideas that they're already bringing to the table. And every time you see a hand up in that sidebar, so similarly, when you see that raised hand icon, you're going to know these were written for English language development in mind. So they were designed to align with those WIDA standards, but they're really helpful for all of our students who may lack a facility with any area of language acquisition. And so when you think about those sidebar supports, think about, we're focused on the science of reading here, but we want you to be focused on the art of teaching. So you're going to bring the art to that, and we're bringing the science. So in universal access and the digital components that we provide, we've got components that provide anchor charts or some lesson supports to save teachers really valuable time. These are quickly identified in that advanced preparation section of each lesson. And the universal access provides teachers with recommendations to provide all students with the additional means to access various content. Our teacher resources, the site now has been given a really refreshed and updated feel and look. There are enhanced navigation features and access to a lot of rich new content and support resources there. There's training videos and lots of documents to support teachers, planning and pacing guides, all of the kinds of things that we've provided, but it's in a really nice one-stop shop. Our social and emotional learning guide is there, our text complexity guide, our equity guide, any of the research guides. Basically, if we have it, it's here for you. And I'm going to share more grade specific digital pieces in a moment. And those are all here as well. But what I really want you to notice, if you notice on the left-hand side there, really big in that screen, is the big chat feature. Now, that's not a big chat feature on our site. It's actually in the lower right-hand corner, but it makes a big impact on our teachers, because when you are there and you have a question, you know, this live chat from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time is manned by these wonderful, wonderful educators, our fabulous, amazing support team. And they aim at answering questions with about a 5-minute turnaround. You know, we have a lot of ways to give you support, but sometimes teachers want it in the moment. And so these people are amazing, and they will get you the answer. They'll do whatever they can to get you the answer on both pedagogical and technological. So we get great emails about how their help is just invaluable with so many of our products adopters. All right, so we've kind of hit on some of the big picture ideas about the changes. And so, you know, let's really dive into CKLA's proven approach to teaching foundational skills, kind of that skills strand and the improvements we hit upon in skills. All right, teachers in kindergarten especially really wanted our kiddos to have access to text a little bit earlier in kindergarten. So using the research, we developed a Rebus Reader really that focuses on our tricky words. So those of you that are familiar with our tricky words, you know they're like high frequency words, what we don't refer to as sight words or high frequency words. We call them tricky words because so many times they are decodable, and decoding is our first line of defense. And so kids and teachers really love the Rebus Reader as it's introduced earlier, much earlier in the year. We also added a multimedia library for the 44 sounds that match our 150 spellings, because those of you that know the program, we're very focused on that sound, right? It's a sound first approach. And students are going to get to hear all the sounds in 3 ways. The first is just a sound that plays, just simple sound to mimic that. The next is an articulation video. So it also demonstrates with mouths, kids' mouths, the spelling of, the video that demonstrates the spelling of that sound, as well as the movement of the mouth. And then there's also a fun, engaging little catchy song. I don't know how much teachers love the songs by the end of the day or the year, but the kids really do love them. They get kids singing and dancing. And we have found these really are a big hit. And so I want you to hear one of these songs. So let me see, I'm gonna actually move. Let's keep going. So this is the sound. So
lemons are delicious and lemonade, but you need lots of sugar when the lemonade's made. Little yellow lemon is the shiniest one, leaving its light on a whole lot of fun. Lemon.
So you got to hear one of our songs. Now we want to see an articulation video. We're going to get to see what that looks like.
Wand. 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 Let's say it together.
All right, so we have a wide variety of students who do the articulation videos, and so it's really nice. And we know some of our kids do struggle with articulating sounds, and so we want to provide that model for them. All right, so that was our K-2 skills strand, and those were the enhancements. There are going to be some more that are digital pieces that I'll hit on that apply to all the grades. But let's move into our knowledge strand, formerly known for those people in first edition as listening and learning. And so we start off with actually a knowledge builder video. They align to our knowledge domains in K-2. And so they are just visuals that really make things come alive for kids. They're great to use to kick off each domain. I've also seen teachers use them really in different grades as well. Kind of a review video sometimes. It can activate some background knowledge. Teachers play them repeatedly, not just at one point, but they can come back to them because kids really like them. And they come with little teacher, teacher guides. Let's watch one for a minute. This actually is kindergarten.
At last, the perfect conditions for the final test of my robotic creation. Life is my creation. Life. I've done it. I've done it. I've brought my robot to life. Oh, shoot. I brought it to life, but I forgot to give it senses. Well, we'll fix that. Everything we experience depends on the 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. We use body parts called sense organs to take in our environment.
All right. So I would love to know in the chat, and Madigan, I can't see the chat, but in the chat, if anybody knows which grade domain that is. I'll keep going on that. But that's a knowledge builder video that kicks off one of our domains.
We had somebody guess kindergarten.
All right, very good. Thank you. Whether you knew or not, I love it that you shared your answer. I appreciate that. And so we also have we see the 5 senses guide that goes along with that. We have an image of a page that goes along with that you can have kids explore the 5 senses in that visual sense, as well as they can keep a 5 senses journal. And so they keep that throughout the domain. And that's definitely something that teachers really find useful. Engaging kind of ways to get kids totally more immersed into the curriculum. And that also does happen with our trade book collection. And so again, that was a really heavily requested edition. And so we wanted to make sure there was an alignment and inclusion of these wonderful rich trade books to enhance the domains. You know, while we previously shared lots of ideas for these in the teacher guide, many of you, have seen lists. We also have those lists that go home sometimes to parents of books they can bring to their kids. But we now provide those K-2 teachers with a trade book and supporting teacher guide for every domain. And here you're going to see Rainbow Joe and Me. And Rainbow Joe and Me goes along with the kindergarten 5 senses domain. And so it's fun for kids to have a really kind of a rich trade book to go along with that. So we also have Language Studio. And so again, as you see in the parentheses, Language Studio is optional. And it's a supplement to CKLA for districts who really have additional time outside of that 60 minutes of domain instruction to support second language learners, because we know that additional time with the language is going to help our students when they come back to the regular classroom. Now, it can be used in the regular classroom as well. It really just depends on the personnel you have and the time you have. So, but it's a focus on that content and vocabulary and the knowledge strand. So it's directly aligned to that knowledge strand. And it's a daily 30-minute lesson that can be employed in a variety of ways, like I said. It's designed around frequent formative assessment of those language competencies, of that entering to bridging, those levels. And so it's really looking at language proficiency, and it gives teachers effective ways to kind of guide and support our English language learners, which we know, in terms of language development, vocabulary, that's where such a struggle is. When you think about your own self learning a foreign language, it's the vocabulary that really can make the difference for us. And so that's an optional piece, but it definitely, I've seen many people adopt that who have a large English language learner population and really find success with that. So I would love to hear some of the thoughts you have, or just things that jumped out at you from first edition to second edition. Was it that kindergarten Rebus Reader, or was it the daily checks for understanding? What are some things that jumped out at you? What are some things that you noticed, or any questions you have that we can hit upon? We'd love to hear from a few people, just some ideas that you have. You can share that in the chat versus the question and the question panel. And Madigan will share with me what might be coming in.
Yep, we have, someone said the videos to help engage learning or to get students interested.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
We have several people saying the Rebus Reader
Yep.
and the Sound Library. Lots of responses about the trade book options and the trade book collection. And a lot for the knowledge builder video and guides as well.
Okay, great. So yeah, you're seeing all the things, and these are really based. That's the other thing, and I hope I really emphasized that early on, that so much of our enhancement discussion was around what do teachers need, what works with the science of reading, what can we share to engage students as much as we possibly can. And so I'm really glad you saw how those pieces really kind of hit home and make it come alive for kids. And that's what we're trying to do. And I know I have so many pictures of teachers across the country making it come alive for their kids. So we were just trying to make it a little bit easier because, you know, teachers, you have so much to do. So we're going to try to save you a little bit of a time on that. So let's talk a little bit, let's shift gears a little bit. Now this may not apply as much to those folks that are using Engage, that are not using grades 3 to 5, but we'd love for you to hear those connections and how grades 3 to 5 connects and is enhanced as we moved forward with the Core Knowledge Foundation development and that kind of continuation of the wonderful curriculum. And so as we discussed earlier, every unit in grade 3 has now become that integrated unit. And I don't know how heavily I really focused on that, but so I really do want to focus on that kind of more heavily. We took the skills strand and we took that listening and learning strand and we merged them. And so in terms of that merging of those strands, that now becomes an integrated unit. And so for those of you that are using first edition and maybe not on Engage, but have been using Amplify or Core Knowledge Foundation, you know that they were two separate strands. And so you want to check out how this looks with that combined focus in the teacher's guide. We are still very focused on listening. And so there are still read alouds built in because that's, you know, and when you think about Scarborough's rope and the science of reading, how important that is as teachers move forward with a more automatic and strategic reading skill development for students. But we still wanted to focus on listening, and listening was really an important piece. So, but that combined strand still focuses on skills. You know, we didn't separate out either one. We just integrated them. And so now kids are really immersed kind of in their reading the content that applies to that grade level. More so than, you know, we didn't have that. We don't have that in K-2. They're not reading about that content. They're totally listening, but now we're merging that. And so one really cool addition was also something called the Vikings Quest. It gets kids really immersed in this cool Norse journey, and it becomes an entire classroom experience. Teachers, actually, there are some videos that go, and when you go on our website, you can see the videos that go along with that, and I definitely check them out. That the Quest video shows that teachers are asked to put their kids in a classroom where they have the desks lined like a longboat, where they're rowing, and they're rowing on this Norse journey from Vinland onwards with Leif Erikson. And so it really explains it in the video, but kids get into it because they really get, there's trading and lots of fun stuff that happens in terms of our Quest videos, or our Vikings Quest. The same thing happens in grade 4. We've got a writing quest that we've embedded now called the Contraption. And again, you can check that out in terms of the video online to see how the contraption works in the classroom. It's really kind of a fun way to get kids involved in more of a creative type of a writing, focus really heavily on language development. And grade 4 also added a personal narrative unit, had some reconfigured units as well. And so check that out when you're looking, if you're a grade 4 teacher, if you're looking at the differences, you can see how that grade actually reconfigured some things as well. And that applies again in 5th grade. Like 4th grade, we have a personal narrative at the first unit, and it was also a change at the last unit with a chemistry focused unit called Chemical Matter. And some reorganization happened in grade 5. So you're going to see that, you know, a writing quest will follow kids. So they're used to that kind of contraption. Now they're going to go into the robot, which is cool. And it's another immersive method we've tried to include to motivate kids to improve their writing. And it really has them kind of impact this robot. An optional piece was added based on a lot of feedback on cursive handwriting. You know, that was not a part of the program. And so we wanted to make sure to meet needs of districts and states that where that is a requirement, but we also know that it's not a requirement everywhere and it's not a mandate. So that's why it's an optional piece. And it's also, you have the ability to say, I'm gonna do this in 3rd grade, I'm gonna do this in 4th grade. Districts who choose it, and they can choose where to teach it, have 14 lessons, and teachers get a Black Line Master teacher guide, and that really determines how that can be integrated, because sometimes it may be something where you're only focused on a few kids. I know as a 5th grade teacher, our school did not really focus so much on cursive handwriting. Most of my kids had no problem, but there was one child I remember, Michael, who really needed that, and he felt really good that I could share that with him. I actually found curriculum to work on cursive writing with him. This is that kind of thing too. However you choose to use it, you can use it, but it's there for you because some people do need it and want it. And so another thing that we've provided, and again, this you'll see on the website when you look on the website and the resources, were some essential questions and prompts. And they're a set of guides designed as blueprints for constructing students' instructional path through the units. And so using the guides with each unit really ensures that students really not only acquire that content knowledge that we're focused on, but that they also have multiple opportunities to interact really purposefully with the text and gain a deeper understanding of all of the topics that we provide for them. You know, there are questions and prompts and activities in the guides, and they enable students to engage meaningfully with that new information. I see teachers right now that use them because there are writing prompts as additional writing prompts, you know, in preparation for state assessments. So, but because they're focused on those content areas and that content instruction, and there's a guide for every unit in grades 3 to 5. Keep in mind too, you know, we haven't talked a lot about our readers yet, but our grades 3 to 5 readers are also available online in Spanish. And I'm going to hit upon the readers because those actually apply to all grades. But we do have Spanish readers because that's where the content becomes, the chapter books become accessible to the students. And so Spanish readers are available. And again, something you want to check out if you're going, when you're going online, if you're going online. And then our novel guides are new in grades 3 to 5. And so we had a lot of feedback from teachers that really wanted to include a different novel. And so there are some novels, if you're familiar with grades 3 to 5, that are embedded within, whether it's Don Quixote or Treasure Island, and we look at The House on Mango Street, but they wanted different novels. They wanted some approaches that we could provide. And so each grade has 2 grade level novel guides to support teachers who, you know, how they choose to include them in a multitude of ways. And I've seen teachers do that. And so you may want to check out those novel guides when you go online. Something else that we've added to the curriculum is a vocabulary app at grades 3 to 5. And remember, I talked earlier about how our grades 6 to 8 program is an extension of our pre-K to 5. And so one of the really neat things that happens in grades 6 to 8 that we actually brought down into grades 3 to 5 is this wonderful adaptive independent vocabulary practice app. And it's to help students with the domain vocabulary, and we provide them practice for students so that they can continue to make those connections and then build that knowledge to apply to their independent reading. So, you know, before a domain, you get kids involved in this vocabulary app. It can be a bell ringer, however you choose to use that. That's how it's used really in 6 to 8. But teachers then get kids exposed to more vocabulary. And remember earlier I shared how important that vocabulary instruction is and exposure is, because that's the thing that can set kids apart in terms of what they can decode, if they're familiar with a lot of vocabulary or not. And so we want them to be able to apply that vocabulary into their reading. And there's a stats page that kids can see. And teachers also have that stats page. They have a different view of the stats page because they're going to have a whole class view, obviously. But teachers also get the word list. So teachers are going to see those word lists. Now those are part of the domains. So it's not like they're foreign and they're new to teachers, but they get it in a word list form. And actually there's an ability to adjust that. And so because the app is adaptive, kids can work up or kids can work down a little bit. The really cool thing about it is they get a wide variety of formats and they get immediate feedback. And so if they don't do well, it supports them and gives them scaffolds as to why in moving forward, because they do have to meet the word at least 4 times for mastery in terms and get it right. And so we're going to give them opportunities to do that. But we also then make sure that, you know, they may have a food blog page on one, and they might have an advice column on the next screen. So they're not doing the same thing. That's fun for kids. So with Writing Studio, this also applies in terms of a K-5 knowledge focus. And so Writing Studio is another optional piece, but it aligns to the domains of instruction. And so it's a supplemental program for districts, again, who have some of that additional time outside of the 60 minutes, outside of that 60 minutes of domain instruction, or that 90 minutes in terms of the upper grades, providing more writing support in all 3 of the modes of writing. So for narrative, informational, explanatory, and argumentation or opinion. So it's daily 30-minute lessons that they can be employed in a variety of ways, just like Language Studio, but it's aligned to those specific domains. So it does follow a sequential path. And so it's not every domain, because it's not like a 180-day or a full, because we knew teachers wanted to have various breaks. So we've aligned it to the majority of domains. We give you that sequence, and it provides really an excellent opportunity to build on that content knowledge and capitalize on more writing instruction related to the content. I don't see a lot of teachers ever share with me that they have struggles with their kids in terms of having things to write about, because the content is so rich and deep, and kids, you know, can't say, I don't have anything to write about, because the reading and the immersion in the domains, they really do. And this gives them even more. So you can imagine with the extension of that writing, they get more practice, and it's really a more focused writing piece from start to finish in those 30-minute lessons. All right. So before we move on to digital enhancements, I'd love to hear, and I don't know how many 3 to 5 teachers, I didn't put the 2 together if people even identified their grades, but any of the digital enhancements that kind of jumped out at you as a grade 3 to 5 teacher. If you'd love, I'd love to have you share that in the chat. Some things that maybe hit home, that whether it was the Spanish readers or some of the quests that we involved, and Madigan, I don't know if you can.
Yep.
Any thoughts that people are having?
Yep. We got lots of people excited about the new vocab app.
Yeah.
And someone said the readers in Spanish, and somebody also said the novel guides.
Cool. And I haven't even hit on all of the other enhancements, the digital enhancements coming up. So let's move on. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate all of those of you that are sharing in the chat. It's hard. We have been in a Zoom world for a while now, and you know just as well as I do how it can be a little bit challenging. All right, so let's find out what we are hearing about K-5 on the digital website. What's for all grades? All right, so as you can see, I'm going to click on this. You can see this is our e-reader. We have ebooks and audiobooks, and so kids are going to have access to that. And again, this is K-5, so they are going to be able to see that and hear their books at all levels. And I think this was really a wonderful enhancement for those students that may have needed some extra support. And so keep in mind, you do have those ebooks and audiobooks at all grade levels. Now, for those of you, this is always a really welcome addition as well. For those of you that have used our assessment and remediation guide, you know that it's targeted tier 2 intervention. And you know that having a very large document, I worked in New York a lot for a while, and I had people come with the printed document in grade 2, the ARG, and they would come and that was a pretty large document. It's 1,200-page document. And we never meant for it to be printed in that way, because it was really meant to be a resource, but it was a challenging resource. And so what we have done is put this online redesigned this assessment and remediation guide to make activities easier to find by organizing it by skill. So you're going to find those phonological awareness and phonics and fluency and comprehension pieces grouped together to make it easier for you to access. And you can see those foundational skill categories that you're going to be able to identify with. Again, there are benchmark and progress monitoring assessments, and those were available in the ARG as well, the assessment and remediation guide. But teachers found it challenging to find the time, and we understood that. And this was one of the biggest pieces of feedback we've gotten for a long time. So it really provides teachers with additional progress monitoring assessments to determine whether kids have those gaps in their knowledge of phonics, additional mini lessons and activities for remediation. And so one of the things that you're going to see when you look at the teacher's guide, and we didn't hit upon every enhancement in the grades K-2 skills, but one of the things we provided were at point of use additional resources that are available within the teacher's guide. And so we went to the assessment and remediation guide and used some of those ideas and pieces and put them at point of use in the teacher's guide. So if you had a child that was struggling with R control vowels, and it was in that lesson at lesson 15, we actually at lesson 15 have additional supports right then and there, but it's outside of the 60-minute time, for those of you that understand that kind of 60-minute block. There are still wonderful hundreds of resources available to teachers in the ARG, and we wanted people to use that. But we knew, again, those additional resources at point of use, as well as those pausing points, those are the first lines of defense. Now we're going to have this wonderful online resource that teachers are going to be able to access to get that. I mean, it's just amazing the feedback we've heard about this new enhancement coming. And so we also, again, we've talked about vocabulary and the importance of it, that there's a vocabulary toolkit, and it's an online edition, and it provides lesson slides. So sometimes people have said, do you have slides to go with the units? These are actual lesson slides on vocabulary and language related topics. And so they're organized a little bit differently. It's not by domain. We picked kind of the most logical place. So as you can see from that scope and sequence on the screen, context clues. It made sense for us to include that in domain 10 in kindergarten. And so that's where some of our slides are. As you see, some of the areas of the instruction, as we move through the grades, there are more slide decks for that. And so but you can kind of pick and choose and see how these apply, but it's really supporting teachers with more vocabulary development so that they can, again, build. It's all about language, building that oral language, as we know from the science of reading. And then for those who use Otis and Illuminate, those partners, we've developed assessments that we have in a file format that uploads into these two systems. Now we can, it's something, if this is a real interest of yours, talking to your account executive about how that can be integrated, because we have developed digital assessments for K-2 knowledge. So this is really a new piece, where the K-2 knowledge will be audio assessments where kids are getting, they've had, again, it's all about oral language in the K-2 knowledge strand. And so we're trying to assess that listening knowledge. We're also going to have kind of pre-assessments, which are new, and those are going to fall into the digital assessment realm. So this is not about skills, but it is about knowledge strand. Kids would need headphones. It does read the choices and directions allowed to kids, but then when we move into 3 to 5, the audio isn't there, but the digital assessment is. And kids are also then, that's, BOY assessment and end of unit. So you're going to see that in grades 3 to 5. The really cool thing, and I don't know how well you can see the screen here, is that we have designed those assessments that are really going to mimic the kinds of assessments kids take on state digital tests. And so they get practice with this content, and they're going to get practice taking those kinds of questions, the drag and drop, those crazy questions where they say, give me the best 2 choices out of 5. Kids are going to get practice with some of that. And so you know, that's something that, like I said, if you want to talk to your account executive about that, that's something definitely pursue, because it really is a neat piece. And so we do have a digital student hub. I mean, I'm going to possibly play just a couple minutes of this for you, because our digital student hub is in development, and we're hearing any day now ready to go. It houses all of that multimedia that we've talked about today, the knowledge builder videos, the e-reader, and with the audio, the sound library. You know, kids can access this site for more practice with any of the material. So they're going to have, you know, that you're going to be able to say, you know, go ahead and watch the knowledge builder video. We continue to develop the resources available to students as we hear from teachers, you know, as to what's going to meet their needs. And so you're going to continue to have access to our hub, and whatever's added along the way for second edition. Keep in mind, you know, this was not originally. So for those of you that are first edition, and again, those of you that are engaged in New York and Core Knowledge Foundation, when second edition was developed, this was not part of it. We've continued to develop these pieces based on teacher feedback. We know how important it is to meet the needs of our teachers and our students and our families out there. And so we're really trying to do that. And we continue. So please, 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 don't tell me what you like. Make sure your feedback, when you give feedback to the feedback people, they will take it to the people that are continuing to develop these pieces for you. And so let's look at a quick, brief little video of this. I'll stop it probably a
The
little.
Hub collects many of CKLA's digital resources in one easy-to-navigate space for students and teachers. To log in, go to ckla.amplify.com/hub and enter your username and password. Teachers and students from grades 3 through 5 will have individual usernames and passwords. K through 2 students use a shared student login. Once you're logged in, you'll be asked to select your grade. You can change the grade you're looking at later by tapping here. The K through 2 experience has 3 main components: the theater, the sound library, and the library for ebooks and other texts. The theater contains knowledge builder videos. There's one video for each CKLA knowledge domain. We recommend that these be played at the start of the domain to introduce the topic and to build excitement. You can watch videos by using these controls.
What are you boys doing over there?
Oh, we're creating civilizations.
The sound library contains resources to help students learn, recognize, and articulate individual sounds. The sounds are organized by a skills unit. Each card contains one sound. On each card, students can listen to the sound to hear proper pronunciation, as well as watch a video that shows a real kid articulating the sound. There's fun animation, too.
Guitar. Guitar.
There are also sound songs, presented as short music videos.
You get to hear
I'm gonna get a guitar. I'm gonna get a good groove. Gonna grab my star.
The library contains all the CKLA readers. These are sorted by unit. Students can navigate by turning the pages, or use the table of contents. Each of our ebooks includes a read aloud option as well, to help support students at different reading levels, or with different accessibility needs. Students can activate it by tapping here.
The fish. Once, Mom hung a fish up on a string. The cat bandit was scratching himself when he got a whiff of the fish.
Everybody knows the cat bandit.
The 3 through 5 hub also contains the Amplify vocab app for extra vocabulary practice. The vocab app gives students CKLA unit vocabulary words for daily fun, themed practice exercises. If students need help while using the hub, they can get it by tapping this button on any of the pages. This is the face of CK2, students' robot guide to the hub.
Hello? Oh, hello out there. You look friendly. It's nice to see a friendly face.
And when you're done with the hub, tap here to log out.
Right. All right.
The hub collects many of CKLA's
one thing I wanted to point out to you on the screen here, and you see I hope you can see my mouse kind of going over. This guy's a little curioso. And Madigan's going to talk about some free resources that we have available. Keep this little curioso guy in mind, because when they're on this actual resource site, the hub for the students, they can actually access our Amplify reading. And that's really something that's we've got CKLA users using that right now, and it really aligns to CKLA's instruction. And so keep that in mind, because it's a great addition, independent addition, to get kids who have gaps and for enrichment. All right, so last couple things I want to hit upon before I turn it back to Madigan. We've got some community support networks. And when we launched second edition, we also launched a Facebook group. So we want you to be able to join that, and you can join it from our resource site. We saw the power of teachers sharing with teachers from across the country, not just with us, but you know, teachers in CKLA have ups and downs. We all do with all curricula, right? And last year when our podcast series began, we also found a huge need for teachers to have a non-product related site to talk about the research and hear from authors who weren't necessarily connected to Amplify. And some of you may be already listening to our podcast series. If you're not, I strongly recommend it. We've had everyone from Emily Hanford to Tim Rosinski to Tim Shanahan. Lawrence Holt just did a really great webinar. Great information to share. And so we'd love for you to join both, or sign up for our podcast, but join our CKLA Facebook group, and really hear from those enthusiastic educators that are discussing those contemporary issues on reading, on the science of reading, on that page as well. And I know I already hit upon this, but that Science of Reading podcast, as I mentioned, our series with our own wonderful, if you've listened, you know Susan Lambert's voice. It's this soothing, wonderful voice, and her ability to connect with our guests makes it a must listen. And it's every couple weeks. But she's our VP of Elementary Literacy Instruction. And it's really a great place to hear from the experts. And so check it out. And so again, I want to turn it over to Madigan here. And if you have questions about Amplify Reading, which she's going to talk about right now, if you have questions about that, or I'd be happy, we're always happy to follow up with you. So I'm on our website. You can find me, Kay Venditti, at amplify.com. I'd be really happy to talk to you further about any of this. But now Madigan's going to share some information about some of the supports we're providing to students and parents and teachers, I mean, everybody across the country at this most challenging time. Amplify really came together with other individuals, other companies, partners from around the country to really try to help meet your needs. And before I end and share today, thank you so much for all that you're doing. You're coming here today to share with us and to give your time. And I know your time is so valuable at this challenging time, and we'll get through it, and we're going to come out on top of this, and I hope to see you. I hope to see you in some of your schools as we move forward with this. So Madigan.
Great, thank you, Karen. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you guys can explore the CKLA second edition resources for yourself. We will add all of these resources, including the URL, to the follow-up email that you will receive with the recording. But you can also go to the URL here, and CKLA offers read aloud lessons for videos for students K through 2. And students will go on a knowledge journey through American history and learn about colonial America and how the United States became a nation. And they'll watch videos and listen to read alouds and discover new words and more. And then we also have the novel guides for students 3 through 5, in which students will dive deep into award-winning novels through writing and reflection, practicing vocabulary, and grappling with questions that promote social emotional learning. And we also are offering Amplify Reading during this time. So you may also explore Amplify Reading and give students some independent skills practice with game-based adventures that provide your students with instruction and practice and foundational reading skills. So we're offering a lot, and again, all these resources will be added to the follow-up email that you'll receive after this webinar. And I saw that we got a lot of chats and questions about the digital features you mentioned, Karen. And I just wanted to let everyone know that the vocab app, the Spanish readers, the novel guides, all of those are on the teacher resource site for CKLA 2nd edition.
Yeah, so you can see those. All right, so I don't know, Madigan, if we've gotten any other questions. I know you may have gotten some in the question and panel versus the chat.
Yeah, we were able to answer all the questions that came in right away. So I think you can just wrap it up unless anyone has any questions they want to submit now.
Yeah, I'm excited that you were able to answer their questions. We'll give you a couple of minutes. We don't need to keep you till 3 o'clock, or it's 3 o'clock my time. I'm in Indiana. So we won't keep you. We'll give you those few minutes back. And I thank you so much. And we'd love to hear more from you. And please let us know what we can do to help you. You got the toughest job in the world, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you, Karen.
Thank you. All right. Do I stop?